Hello, and welcome to the latest edition of What Does the Draft Say with me, Kathleen Retourne. We're an organisation that aims to connect people in conservation by holding live interviews on social media. Today, I'm very happy. I am joined by Kevin Pipp, and he is the founder of Wild Response. So, Kevin, if I could just hand over to you, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in conservation.
Yeah, so hi, and thanks for having me on. This is awesome. So my passion was always wildlife conservation. I always wanted to be a zookeeper as a little kid, and that was my singing life. But then I was told zookeepers didn't make much money and it was a silly job, so I became a soldier instead. So for the better part of almost 18 years, I was in the U.S. Army, did almost a decade of Special Forces in Afghanistan, Iraq, all through the Middle East. But still, my passion was wildlife conservation, and I always liked being outside in wildlife. And then towards the end of my Special Forces career, I just decided I wanted to do something different in life and not get into chasing money and contracting work. So I decided to try and help out with the problem of illegal wildlife trade around the world. And you see it all over the news and YouTube, like we're losing rhinos, gorillas, tigers. And people were asking for help and training. So with all my training and background, like I might be able to help people and kind of give back. So that's how I got into conservation.
And then how did you start with the connections and that side of things? Did you know people already in the industry, or was it something you had to kind of start right from the bottom?
The industry is very hard to get into. I was trying to get into this when I was in Special Forces, and you email people and no one writes you back, and you're trying to reply to people on Facebook, which I now try and be good about myself as a CEO of a company, where people write to me like, how do I get involved? Because I was that guy once and people don't reply back. So it is very hard to get into. Finally, I was offered a job by a non-profit out here in Africa that was about to take on a Rhino project and training an anti-poaching unit. So I got to come on as team leader of that project and help build an anti-poaching unit from the ground up. I ran that for a year doing rhino poaching. And that was kind of my introduction to South Africa and what was going on here. And then I decided, from being involved in anti-poaching on one property on the ground, which wasn't enough. Like I had more skills and I was just being wasted in one place. So then I started looking outwards towards the rest of the world and the poaching problem, and maybe how I can start linking people up and fixing some of the problems there. So then I moved out into Asia and around the rest of Africa before kind of settling back in South Africa again.
Excellent. So you touched on it a bit briefly there with the anti-poaching work that you're doing. So can you talk us a little bit about the process of what this does and the work that you're doing and kind of what countries you've been able to implement these in?
Yeah, so a lot of people don't realize in the wild that endangered wildlife, or wildlife in general around the world, it's protected. It has to be protected due to humans. Like there's a lot of humans. We encroach on habitats, we cut down trees, we kill meat, we kill animals for meat to sell, we kill high value animals for cash. So wildlife rangers and anti-poaching units are out in the field 24/7 protecting wild places. So that is their job. It used to be a lot more conservation driven, and their job would be to go out and kind of slap poachers on the hands. They're like, don't cut down trees, don't take meat. And most of the rest of their job was focused on the conservation work of the property. But now, due to the rhino wars, cost of tiger, costs of like some expensive rosewood in Asia, the poachers and the risk that they're willing to take to get these products have significantly gone up. And I hate to say it, but it's almost kind of like similar to a war zone. I'm not going to say it's a war zone because this ain't a war zone, but it has some like similarities between like how regular rangers have had to upskill and become almost paramilitary in order to deal with this in the field. So that's what I focus on training and kind of helping these guys out with.
And have they had any experience beforehand? Are you going in like straight in from the bottom, or have they got a bit of basic understanding in training?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so in South Africa especially, to be anti-poaching, there's certifications they have to go to. So they'll go to an anti-poaching academy, they'll get their firearms competencies, and they'll get their security certificate in order to operate as a security agent or a security officer in South Africa and make arrests and prevent people from doing that. So there is certification to get into the industry. It's very hard for a foreigner to come into a foreign country and get into an anti-poaching unit. and actually do it. I'm not saying it's impossible, because I know some units you can be involved with, but you're going to be unarmed. And like I said, most of the job isn't shooting people and running around with guns. You carry guns, but most of the job is patrolling and prevention and being like the eyes and ears of a property.
And do you see a difference between like the anti-poaching in Asia compared to Africa? Is there a different environment? Is there a different attitude?
Yes, very different. So that was one of the biggest things I realized after being in South Africa. I then went to Thailand from here out to Asia to see what was going on there with the Rangers. And it's very different there. They're carrying AK-47s, and they're going into the forest where they're dealing with gangs that are logging. So they'll come in and do these big de-logging operations for rosewood. It's about $350,000 once it's on the ground, and they'll have a whole army of people with them to protect that. And while they're there, they're poaching at the same time. So the Rangers hear chainsaws and go to investigate, and they might bump into like 30 armed people, and they just aren't adequately prepared for that. So that was kind of different there. And then you've got, it definitely seems like the Rangers in Asia aren't funded to the same amount as the Rangers in Africa, and they don't have the same awareness, like public awareness, as the Rangers in Africa do. Even when you go to YouTube, everything's Africa, rhinos. You don't see anything in Asia. Very little on the projects out there, which is really surprising to me. So I really went out to Asia and tried to kind of figure out how to help out there more as well.
I mean, you're right. Now you're saying that, I'm actually thinking, yeah, it is very much focused on Africa. And why do you think that is? Because I mean, they share several of the same kind of species and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that could be an interesting one, right? You can go lots of avenues on that. Why is that? Africa is very big on safari tourism. That's a big one. It doesn't exist in Asia, so there's not a huge market of people to come and see the animals we have. The natural parks exist, but they're government owned, and they're government owned in a country that has corruption and not much money. So there's not many animals. So people don't want to travel and see that. Whereas in Africa, you have tourism because people can own the properties. So I can make it attractive to outside investment and people to come and see it. So that's why. But like everyone knows about African elephants being poached. Everyone can do the classic African elephant, but no one can tell you 30,000 Asian elephants or where they are. Or like everyone knows there's tigers in the world, but no one can tell you where they are or how many there are. So like it definitely seems that no attention's paid to ape. Maybe it's a language barrier. Maybe that's why. Because I was in Thailand. It's kind of hard to read Thai conservation papers if they're put out. It doesn't translate very well.
Yeah.
So in Africa, people write papers and I can read them, and I do frequently. But in Asia, I can't read the papers, so maybe it just doesn't get out the same way.
Yeah,
possibly.
no, that's really interesting. I think that's going to be something I'm going to kind of look into a bit deeper. We're kind of feeding back into the anti-poaching work that you're doing. I mean, you touched on it earlier. The Rangers can sometimes be put in some really kind of surprising, stressful, dangerous situations. Do you do work with them to kind of prepare them for this, both mentally and physically, and also kind of mentally afterwards once they've come back from that environment?
It's a lot of questions all at once.
Put you through your paces.
Yeah, so like I said, so the anti-poaching work that these anti-poaching units do, it has its dangerous moments. There's a lot of threats posed to them by wildlife. And you actually interviewed someone prior to me coming on who's also one of my idols, is Sean Wilmore from the Thin Green Line. Yeah. So I actually met him in Nepal at the World Ranger Congress, and he said it correctly. 500 rangers there is a great time, but that really changed my mind on what was needed in wildlife conservation and how to help rangers. Yeah. And while I was there, I heard three things. We aren't paid enough, we don't have enough equipment, and we're being killed. So like, I can't help you with your pay. I can kind of help with equipment, and I can help you with not getting killed by offering medical training. Yeah. So right now, all through South Africa and Asia, we've been rolling out Stop the Bleed medical training, and it's a really slimmed down version of what we taught in the American Army for a very long time. And we had the highest survival rate of any war in history. So the same things that work there, I teach to rangers now in the park. Most of the medical training they have is very rudimentary. It's more first aid driven, not trauma. Okay. So they can splint the bone, but they can't keep the blood in, which is what kills you. Yeah. So I give free training to rangers through national parks on life-saving skills at no cost to them.
Yeah, excellent. And also a lot of what you do as well is you're partnering with local organizations and working with the communities as well. I know you're based across Africa and Asia as well, but typically what's the kind of attitude towards wildlife in the areas that you're working with? And have you seen a change in attitude since you've been working alongside them?
Oh yeah, I've definitely seen a huge change of attitude since I've been doing this, because I came from a very militaristic lifestyle. Even for special forces, we think different. But when I first came into conservation, my mindset to where I am now and how I view the importance of communities living alongside these wild places. I mean, we can't fight our way out of this. Like, we aren't going to kill the poachers until there's no rhino poaching. We aren't going to catch all the bad guys killing tigers. Like, it's not going to happen. They're criminal syndicates. We can affect the communities that live next to these places and give value to wildlife. Yeah. It's huge here in South Africa, and it's one of the issues with the rhino poaching, and it's one of the issues I see with the communities. They're behind a fence and they don't see the wildlife. Yeah. So if I don't see it and I can't interact with it, like, why do I care? And it's kind of sad that I live in a place where, like, I have leopards outside the house right now and hyenas, and like, I take it for granted. I'm not even African, but there are Africans who've lived here their whole lives just outside my gate who will never see this. Yeah. So why do they care if someone poaches in here or someone kills the wildlife? So I've actually had a really good opportunity this year to work with some groups who do outreach and introducing children and local communities to the parks. Yeah. And yeah, it's really rewarding. So that's a future thing I really want to get into, is I think that's a way. And I saw it in Nepal as well when I was there with Sean. Rhinos walk the streets at night. They were seriously poached, and then the community changed their view on conservation and realized there was money to be made. And now rhinos walk through the main road at night, and we were there drinking and rhinos come down the road. So it can be done. They went from almost no rhinos to a population of over 1,000 now, and I think less than 10 years.
And when you're taking these children to see the animals for the first time, what sort of reactions are you getting from them? Are they scared? Are they excited?
Very excited. And we actually got to take one of my wife's friends actually from the local grocery shop out recently, a young man who's been here his whole life, works his ass off. We always buy food and we always see him. Never seen the park, never seen the wildlife. So we got to take him to a wildlife rehabilitation center here where they have all the rescued animals from the snares and poachers and poisoning. It's the first time seeing vultures and lions up close and all these animals, and he had an amazing time. So it was really touching for me. Not just touching, it was very much like a big aha moment, just realizing, like, it's one thing for me to be here and see it, like, but what is it for these people to see it and be involved with it? And now he has interest, and he asks us questions at the shop when we're there, like, what do we like in this animal, and have we seen this? So already I see the value from just one person for an afternoon with us. Now is engaged, so it can work on a larger scale.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. I mean, I know when I've been looking at some of the work you guys have been doing on social media, if you're watching back home, please do check out their page, Wild Response, on Facebook. There's a lot of stuff that you've been doing in terms of going out and doing picking up snares and things like that. Is that something the community get involved with as well?
Yeah, so for the snare sweeps, we're actually supporting a community-driven program north of us in Palabora called Palabora Natural Heritage Foundation, run by our friends. And they set that organization up, and it's been growing exponentially over the last year plus. So everyone knows about the rhino poaching epidemic, like rhino poaching, elephant poaching. It's the big iconic animals. Yeah. But something that's going on quietly in the background, which is just as damaging right now, is the massive snare poaching issue. Some of these snare poachers go out and put out hundreds of snares a night, and they're just silent killers. They're just loops of metal. They'll hang in the bush, and they'll put them on all the game trails. So all the trails to water, to food, to bedding, and you can just cover an area with that. Whatever goes through it is killed. Anything. Leopards, wild dogs, impala, waterbuck, elephants, rhinos get in them. I've seen buffalo, hippo. So just indiscriminate, and they'll kill everything. If the poacher gets caught or the poacher decides his traps have been found and doesn't come back, then he just leaves them. There's just 200. So, like, you'll find lines that have been abandoned and they are just full of death. Yeah. All the animals get stuck in them, then the hyenas get stuck in them and die, and it's terrible. So this community project now, we meet up on the weekends and we go out and clear community blocks of land, and it's growing in movement. It's something that's very important and needs to grow as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That kind of feeds quite nicely into my next question, actually. So, I mean, I'm assuming with the snares, this is being used for the bushmeat trade and those kind of things. Have you seen an uptick in this because of COVID, where a lot of people have now started to lose their jobs because the tourists aren't coming in and that kind of stuff? And what sort of impact has COVID had on the work?
So I was here all through last year for the lockdown, which was really interesting because COVID did make a difference on poaching initially. You couldn't travel the roads, so rhino poachers especially couldn't poach and then get the horns to Johannesburg. So all poaching stopped for the most part. It wasn't until after the lockdown when the roads opened again that the rhino poaching picked up again. As far as the meat poaching goes, I've heard both ways that it has picked up due to Corona, and then but from what I've seen, it just seems to be steady. It goes along with poverty. If there's people that are poor and hungry, or if there's someone that thinks they can make money off of someone else by taking it, there's always going to be a criminal element that wants to try. I wouldn't say, well, it's probably gone up a little bit due to Corona. I wouldn't say it hasn't, because there's definitely more people affected now, but yeah. I wouldn't say I'm just seeing it everywhere exploding, but it's steadily everywhere, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. And if people are watching back here and they're liking the work that you're doing, and they're wanting to be able to support you and that kind of stuff, what sort of stuff can they do to help you guys and help support your organization?
You can like and follow us on our social media, which is always big nowadays, apparently. So we have a Wild Response Facebook and a Wild Response Instagram that we try and post stuff on and keep people engaged. And then we also have a www.wildresponse.org webpage where people can go and see what we do and donate as well, which is also important.
Yeah. And have you found it's been more difficult during the lockdown times?
Yes. Right now in South Africa, it's definitely harder for conservation. They are struggling. Not just South Africa, I'd say Africa as a whole, and projects I have in Asia as well, because we have some projects out there. Yeah. Conservation right now is struggling due to Corona, due to the lack of tourism. People aren't coming and spending the money for the volunteer programs that pay the fees, which keep the trucks going. Tourists aren't coming to pay to stay in the lodges, which fund the anti-poaching units, which protect the wildlife they come to see. So right now, everyone is running on limited funds and really hoping that tourism comes back in the future.
Yeah,
which I do hope for, but at the same time, deep down, part of me wishes it doesn't, to tell the truth, because like I traveled the world and tourism was screwing up stuff, man. Like Thailand, plastic, like that mass tourism wasn't doing a favor to the environment. So at some point, like, money is nice, but the damage we're doing to the environment should also be considered. So while I would like tourism back, at the same time, I don't want people back as much.
Yeah. Do you think maybe it might have had made a change in attitudes, that people have realized the impact we're having on the environment, and maybe there might be more sustainable travel organizations and tourists out there?
That is what I'm really hoping for now. I think people will be a lot more cautious about the travel they take. I think the days of just that dumb random travel where I'm just going to go waste my time, people are going to not take that risk. So if you can target with good conservation projects and expose people to this, I am seeing a shift in Asia and Africa with how they pitch the projects and what they offer. So it is adjusting and adapting to this. A lot of it's online now. I see you can do a lot of conservation online. Like, there's a lot of courses you can go online now and take in conservation and tracking and anti-poaching, all through the computer now.
Yeah, no, I have seen an awful lot of that. I mean, people have had to shift their attitudes completely, haven't they, to try and make the most of the situation. And technology has become one of the key things. Well, hence how we're doing this today here. You know,
that's a very good point. Like, if it wasn't for this, we wouldn't be here talking and making the public aware of this already. I guess Corona has kind of benefited. I just hope we as people don't forget. We as humans can forget stuff very, very easily. Like, the pandemic just happened largely because of the illegal wildlife trade and what we've been doing to the environment. Another half a year from now, we'll be like, pandemic what? Like, that was... Yeah. So I hope we don't go back to what we were doing. I hope this kind of sparks some change in people.
Yeah, me too. So you've been working in conservation now for a little while. Is there anything that you know now that you wish you'd known at the start? And if someone's looking at you like as an inspiration, what sort of advice would you give them to get into the industry?
Ooh, that's a hard one. So I've been doing this now for about 6 years, bouncing around through Africa and Asia. To get into the industry, I would say just do it. Don't be afraid. just commit. Like, if you want to do this, commit. Like, I tried to bounce back and forth from America, and like now I live this life. Like, this is my life. There's lots of resources out there. They're not always easy to find. The easiest way to get into conservation is to go overseas. Like, get off your sofa, commit, pack your bag. Like, you have to put your foot in the water. I have a lot of conservation people now I bring out and get involved. So like, a lot of it is just afraid to commit. Like, there are conservation projects overseas, and there are volunteers there waiting for you, and there are friendly people. Like, people pick you up at the airport, commit, go to Asia, go to Africa, find a project. At least once you're here, then you start to build that Rolodex of who you know and who you can call, and then the world starts to open. So I wish when I first came in the beginning, someone like me had scooped me up and just said, like, just listen and look with open eyes and just take in info and choose the path you want to go. Like, there's so many different avenues you can go down. There's organizations you can link up with, and the more you do it, the more you kind of figure out who it is and what you are in this kind of conservation world, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think as well, a lot of people just sometimes think it's just out in the field and things like that, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes as well. So even if you've got experience, I say, like in fundraising or in marketing, that, you know, you can bring those skills to the industry as well.
Yeah, and that's another good point. You don't have to be out here. So I guess I'm talking to those that want to, like, they know they want to be out here, but they can't figure out why they haven't made it happen yet. And then there are those back home that can support, through fundraising, or maybe you work for Google and you run the AI for cameras, or maybe you have a specialty in drones and you think that you might be able to roll out a new camera for drones. Like, there are lots of ways you can reach out and help conservation. If you have any wacky new ideas you think might help, send them to me, or message Sean Wilmore at the Thin Green Line Foundation. And if he's
thank
watching,
you for that.
Okay. I love his program too. He's doing good things out there. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're getting some lovely comments coming through about the work that you're doing as well. So people saying that you're doing some great work in this incredibly important field. So yeah, people are appreciating the work that you're doing. I only have one more question left, but if you're watching back home and you'd like to put a question to Kevin, then just pop it in the comments section below, and I will put it to him. For me, Kevin, I always try and end things on a bit of a positive note and a bit of an inspiration. So I'd love to find out what your favorite success story is.
That's a hard one. And when you ask that question too, I don't know if I have a personal favorite success story, like something that Wild Response has done. We've done lots. Actually, no, some of the really touching ones I've done have been the releases of wildlife from snares. Like, when we're able to rescue wildlife from snares, because that is absolutely horrible. So I'll kind of touch on what it is for those that don't understand. So this wire loop is in the bush, and it's a self-tightening loop. So the animals walk through, put their necks through it, and they keep walking. And the noose tightens as they're walking until it finally locks. And then the animals panic, and then they just go crazy. They'll spin themselves around the tree, and then they'll die from suffocation. If they don't die from suffocation because it's on the leg, they'll die from dehydration, starvation elements. What happens with the big buffalo or lions, especially, is they just go crazy. And like wire, you can snap it if you twist it enough, but not before this stuff cuts all the way through like cheese wire. So some of the worst injuries I've seen, the buffaloes and lions, it will cut like cheese wire all the way through not just the flesh, like a good inch through meat, and you'll be like, what the hell? And the vet will cut it out, will clean the wound, and the animal will live, and they recover fairly well. But the suffering they have to go to before we can find them and rescue them is terrible. So I wish I had more money to rescue more animals out of that. Like, I wish I had more money to pick up more snares and support people picking up more snares, and then all the money I needed to rescue all the animals. Yeah. Someone was like, there's an animal in a snare. I wish I could be like, I've got the money to pay for the vet and the helicopter. Like, let's go get it. Because no one can help them other than the people that go and help them. Like, they're just going to be in that suffering caused by people. Like, it must be miserable. I can only imagine.
Yeah, no, I completely
and that's
agree.
Very rewarding to me, like being able to rescue them from that and kind of helping them on their way.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. We've got a question coming through from Darren Coombs, and he's asking, what are your thoughts on breeding rhino for their horn?
That's a very good question, Darren. I'm against it. I know a lot of people right now are pushing for it, but I'm against it because we have a unicorn. Like, kids draw unicorns, we don't have them, but we do. We have rhinos, and we dehorn them to save them right now, which breaks my heart. And it's such a sad moment because, like, we have a fucking excuse my language. We have a unicorn, and we're taking off its horn. Yeah. So I don't think we should breed them and then take their horns off in hopes that one day we could sell them, because it's just going to encourage the continued use of rhino horn. And the problem with that is you can say your horn's legal and I can say mine's legal too, but how it's paperwork from a country that's notoriously corrupt. Yeah. So everything can be forged here. So once we start down that route, an animal that's super endangered just becomes like, we shouldn't be playing with that test. Like, it's, so yeah, it's not right. And the stress to the animal, like, imagine being a unicorn and having no horn.
Yes. And it's basically treating wildlife like a commodity, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. We shouldn't, of all the wildlife, we shouldn't commoditize. Like, rhinos are wild, and somehow we as humans have managed to find a way to put them and try and turn them into fat farm animals. And like, I've seen that here in country, and like, it's really sad. It's horrible to see. Human greed.
Yeah, I understand. We've got a question coming through from Emma Louise Edwards, and she's asking, what do you think the answer is to reducing the use of snares?
Community outreach. Talking to children in schools and showing them the wildlife so they're involved and they don't want their family poaching. I also think that finding and hiring snare poachers is a cost-effective way at clearing snares. Most of these people don't want to be, well, they don't want to be doing it. They're doing it because it's convenient, but they don't understand the ecological damage they're having and the long-term effects it's going to have on their children and the environment, just because they don't have the education and then they don't have the thing we do. So I think educating children, re-educating snare poachers, and kind of putting them back out to work to remove snares is a long-term strategy.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, well, that seems to be all the questions that we've got coming through so far. As I say, we've had some really nice feedback coming through. So there's people definitely supporting the work that we're doing, and it's incredibly important. Before we go, is there anything that you'd like to finish up with?
No, I'm pretty good, actually. That was my first live talk, actually. Thank you for having me.
No problem. It's been an absolute pleasure. So again, if you're watching this and it's not live and you still want to put a question to Kevin, please do so. You can pop it in the comments section and either Kevin or myself will get back to you with a response for that. And if you haven't done so already, please do go and see them on their social media pages, follow, like, and share. The more people that do so, the more people become more aware of the work that everybody is doing to protect our wildlife and wild spaces. As well, if you're watching this and you're new to What Does the Giraffe Say, then please like and comment and share on our posts. We have lots of different interviews in the past, and we've got some really exciting ones lined up for the future as well. And it's a great way to keep connected with conservation. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.